So how about we talk about a chaotic, stylish, and mind-bending anime that's equal parts action, mystery, and madness. Blockade Battlefront, also known as Kekai Sensen. This series follows a typical anime formula, it throws you right into the middle of madness and dares you to keep up. But trust me, if you stick with it, you're in for a ride filled with over-the-top battles, quirky characters, and some surprisingly emotional moments. So, let's not waste anybody's time. Let's talk about why I think you should watch Kekai Sensen. So, the basic story is Kekai Sensen takes place in a chaotic city formerly known as New York, but now it's called Hell Salem's Lot. Why the name change? Because a portal between Earth and beyond opened up in the middle of the city, merging humans with interdimensional creatures, spirits, and aliens, and covering the city in this thick cover of fog. The result? Absolute pandemonium. The portal incident has created a city where the supernatural is the new normal. Like humans and aliens are just living together, and it's chill. So that's where Libra comes in, a secret organization made up of superpowered humans and weirdos tasked with keeping the balance because, when you have this kind of combination, there's gonna be serious crime. So this group is composed of the weirdest of the weird, and its job is to protect everyone in Hell Salem's Lot, keeping the balance between human world and the otherworldly chaos. So our main character is Leonardo Watch. He's a kind-hearted young man who ends up getting the all-seeing eyes of the gods. It's a mysterious power that allows him to see things no one else can see. Giant blue eyeballs. But it comes at a cost. His sister's own eyesight. So he joins Libra in hopes of finding answers and maybe even a way to help his sister. So unlike a lot of animes, Kekai Sensen doesn't follow a singular narrative arc, it's more episodic. Like each episode, it kind of reminds me of Cowboy Bebop, and funny enough, it has that jazz tune, got that kind of feel and kind of 90s kind of vibe, if you understand what I mean. So it follows that episodic nature, which works well for it. It throws us into different missions and conflicts that show off the bizarre city and even more bizarre characters. But through the insanity, the story weaves in bigger themes of loss, responsibility, finding your place in a world that doesn't even make any sense, and the true costs of the choices we make and sacrifices that we have to make for dreams to come true. Now let's talk about the characters because they're the heart of the show and they are very wild in each their own way. We have Leonardo Watch, like I said before, he's the emotional core. He's not your typical action hero. He's not strong. He's not brave in the traditional sense, but he's determined to chase his dreams and the things he wants to accomplish. His power isn't flashy, but it's essential. And he grows a lot as the series progresses. I like how his power is not like, he's not the very powerful guy. You understand? His power is just his eyeballs, but he uses it in creative ways that helps the team. Then we have Klaus von Reinhardt, the badass leader of Libra. He's the gentleman, a scholar, and he can punch the soul out of a demon. He's one of those characters that feels like he walked out of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure for real. But he's not even a bad thing, he's a very interesting and intriguing character. And I love his character design for real. Then we have Zap Renfro, the classic hothead with deadly footwork and a very crazy attitude. He's the blood style martial artist and he constantly causes trouble for Leo. But deep down, he's got a good heart. Though it's probably buried under 5 layers of ego and cigarettes for real. Because that guy is crazy. But he's a character I love the most in the whole show for real. I mean, for obvious reason. He's the cool guy. Then we have Chain Sumeragi, a sarcastic, stealthy werewolf with teleportation powers and a deadpan attitude. She's easily one of the coolest female characters in the show, and she deserves way more screen time than she got. There are many more other side characters and villains, each with their own weird quirks and powers. The cast is actually massive. I can't talk, I could spend the whole video just talking about the cast. but somehow the show makes you care about even the minor ones. So, what do I think about Blood Blockade Battlefront? First off, the style is incredible. The animation, especially its action scenes, is absolutely top tier. Studio Bones did an amazing job. It's beautifully done. There's this gritty, almost jazz-filled energy to the show that reminds you of Cowboy Bebop and Bacano. The city of Hell Salem's Lot is basically a character in itself. It's alive. So many things, so many different levels. It's unpredictable. It's beautifully animated and it's bizarre. You never know what kind of supernatural madness is going to hit you next. Now, on to, one of the criticisms. I understand, the show, it can feel very overwhelming. Sometimes, it throws a lot at you with very little explanation. The pacing is very fast. The terminology is weird. And the plot, sometimes, it takes a backseat to style. But personally, I like those. I like some of them. I wish they could have been done differently. But, overall, it's not too bad. It's something you can overlook, I think that the chaos it also adds to this charm of the show. It's not like fine. The pace is just all over the place. And I think that kind of, it keys into the theme of it being like a kind of chaotic show in itself. You understand? So it feels like you're seeing the world through kind of Leo's eyes, completely out of your depth, confused and fascinated at the same time. Emotionally, the show hits harder than you'd expect. Leo's story with his sister gives the series some real heart. Characters like Klaus and Chain have surprisingly deep moments too. There's also a constant theme of sacrifice, what we give up for others and what it's meant to, do in the grander scheme of our lives. You understand? What we are willing to sacrifice for others. So overall, Kekai Sensen is stylish, chaotic, and full of heart. It's full of heart and it might not be for everyone. For real, I understand it's not for everyone. If it's not your thing, then there's no problem with that. But I think if you haven't given it a try, I think you should just try it. I don't think it's an anime you should be recommending as first animes for, people just starting anime or something. Or just maybe started watching a couple animes. No, I think it's something that after you've watched so many type of animes that you're looking for something different, then you can give Kekai Sensen a try. You understand? If you enjoy anime that leans into the weird and gives you something fresh and new and different, then it's definitely worth watching. So, there you have it, guys. That's me on Kekai Sensen. Let me know your own thoughts on the anime. Did you love it? Do you think it's too weird for you? What do you think about it? Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.